And welcome to Life Support Live, the weekly live show that explores how Star Trek can help us to boldly go in our own lives to better ourselves and the rest of humanity.
Yes, as a famous starship captain you all know once said. And as another famous captain once said of a starship, wherever our mission takes us, we'll try to have a little fun along the way.
Hello, everyone. I am psychologist, Dr. Ali Mattu.
Yes, he is. And I am Dr. Trekland, Nemecek.
Yes, yes, he is.
Yes. And one of us is a real doctor.
As always, we'll leave it to you to determine. We'll let you decide who that might be.
Yes, we will.
On today's show, we are talking about making decisions. Let us know, folks, in the comments, what's your favorite Star Trek episode involving a major decision? But before we decide anything...
There's like 570 of those or something.
I think making decisions is a recurring theme I see in Star Trek in the canon. Larry, before we get ahead of ourselves,
like a recurring decision in like drama. I don't know.
What is this, Larry? What is this thing that we're doing?
What is this thing called, Larry? Okay.
What is this thing called Life Support Live?
Aside from insanity, what is this? Oops, I shouldn't use that word so loosely on a show like this, because Life Support Live, friends and neighbors, is our weekly place to get together to geek out on Star Trek and do it through a mental health lens, or as we say, to go boldly through uncertain times. And
these times have remained uncertain for quite a while now, Larry. We're approaching the 1 year mark.
I think, do I still have it where I can show it? Is this going to break the camera?
Folks, we've got a vaccine here. 50% of Life Support Live hosts are now vaccinated. 50%.
I love the math. I love these statistics.
Soon, maybe it'll be 100%. Larry,
now, Ollie, I mean, what do I need to sit down and have a talk with you? I mean, like, I know there's lots of questions, but really mathematically,
can the hypospray go in either arm?
Only if it's an original series hypospray, and then it can go through fabric or
right.
Yes,
I'm holding out for the original series hypospray vaccine 1 shot. That's what I want.
Oh, okay.
I don't want that next generation 2-shot hypospray vaccine. I want the 1 shot.
Older and bolder.
Those old scientists. I want that version. I trust those old scientists. No, Larry, I'm so thankful you are vaccinated. Thank you for doing your part to fight this pandemic. I'm looking forward to California. I will be eligible on Wednesday here in California. So
how did I get to do something sooner? I mean, how did Southern California go sooner than Northern California?
I'm not in the age range yet, Larry. I'm not eligible.
Oh, okay, that's right.
There's
you know what though? There's been a whole. I know we're going to talk about Star Trek in a minute, but there's been a whole, and there was actually a lot of Star Trek.
Is it soapbox time?
No. I'm just
man.
a little bit.
Please. It's been a while since we had a soapbox.
I might change the brand on my soapbox, but I'm just the whole thing about us. Oh no. Well, it was that whole thing about the younger. You know, they only gave my age bracket 2 weeks. It's like all the special category people and 65 and older had like 3 months, and then we have 2 weeks. And then they opened it up for everybody. But what I was going to say was there have been so many, sadly, here in California anyway, and I think it's across the country, there have been so many areas of vaccination skeptics that there are a lot of places where they have tons of open slots. In LA proper, it was like 90% full. And then, but if you drive to the next, like an hour and a half and you get to the next county, there's been a whole industry. I think Will Wheaton did this. And then a lot of people, my friend John Champion, a lot of people have driven from LA and Hollywood an hour and a half to Bakersfield to get shots because they have empty slots. So it's on one hand, I want to go people, but then on the other hand, people are, so they're cutting in line, but it was for the vaccines would go, if they're Moderna or Pfizer, they go, wasted if they don't use them. So anyway,
yeah,
whatever, just get us there. You know.
It's wonderful to see in the comment section. People are saying I'm 50% vaccinated. Glenn just said that his
I
mom
guess
just
we're
got
actually 25% vaccinated of the hosts.
yeah, that's right.
I'm one to two. Yeah,
You got another shot to go.
yeah, yep.
Yeah. So you're not quite there yet. Glenn just said that his mom just got the J&J vaccine. Charlotte is getting her second shot. I think, who was it? Victoria said she's 50% vaccinated. Scott, I think, is getting his second shot. So I just want to say it's really just want to say how jealous I am. No, folks, I am. I'm very envious and also happy for you. But the other thing, Larry, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of Life Support Live. And how amazing!
I mean, we just had our 50th, and now here we are, almost to our year.
Wow, it's almost like the math there almost works out.
The power of math, people.
It's the power of math. What is pretty cool is here we are a year later, and there are members of our community who are now either fully or partially vaccinated. And a year ago, when we started this show, we had absolutely no idea where this pandemic was headed. And it's a race right now. It's a race between, can we get to herd immunity? Can enough people get vaccinated that we can slow the spread of this virus? And on the other side, we have new variants coming out. So it is a race, and different parts of the world are going at different paces. There's a lot of barriers to getting vaccinated. Some countries like Canada has a big supply problem, but then there's countries like Japan are having a population, a lot of barriers and people wanting to get the vaccine. A few years back, Japan had a problem with, I think it was a measles vaccine, and as a result of that, there's been much more resistance to getting vaccinated.
Made everybody gun shy or needle shy or
needles.
Whatever.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of real barriers here, but 1 year,
almost all of Africa is just behind. Well, yeah, there are a lot of places in the world that. The U.S. is in its blinders thing. Is look, we're actually like doing so much better than we were, and there are chunks of the world like Africa and a lot of Asia going, well, how nice for you.
Oh, and Europe. I mean, so many
Europe,
parts. Yeah. France just recently went into another lockdown. So it's on the one hand, it's quite optimistic to be here 1 year later. And for vaccines to be rolling out, and on the other hand, we still have so much uncertainty about where things are going.
So close and yet so far away.
Yes. Yeah. And Larry, speaking of optimism, and wow, what a difference a few days can make.
What a difference a day makes.
What a difference a day makes when there's so much Star Trek news. Oh my gosh, this week was bookended by some major announcements. There's a lot of stuff happening in the Star Trek multiverse.
It was like first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth Contact Day all at once. It was
yeah, I know. Yeah, folks, we had a special First Contact Day episode last week. So if you haven't listened to that, in the links below are links to our podcast where it's available. It's available pretty much anywhere. If you can't access it, let us know. And we'll try to get it added to whatever directory. But check out last week's podcast episode. But Larry, I just want to touch base with you. Any big reactions to all the news from Monday, but then also Friday?
No.
No.
No, I just love your setup sometimes. No, it was, and I just want to tell everybody, we mentioned podcasts here. If you missed the big announcement at at our 50th episode party, we do have all the prior shows. We're not doing a second show every week as a podcast. Let's not get carried away. Same show, but they have been specially edited to be they're 98% all there. They're cleaner. Big thanks to Scott for doing this for us, one of the moderators here, and our thanks to Jared. Jared may be vaccinating though again, and you know what? Jared's in Florida, anything that's going to help out Florida, I'm all for it. So you go, Jared. If you're not here, if you're with us in spirit and you're catching later. But yeah, the podcast is there. So if you're new to our show, if you're new to Life Sport Live and you want to like go back and get some earlier shows, they're all there on YouTube as well as a podcast. But if video for 2 hours is not your thing and maybe podcast is, now you can catch all the content because you don't need to stare at us. There's no real big deal to this.
I mean, unless you want to see my shirts.
I took out all the complicated CGI. So
I know Scott tends to be a fan of seeing my shirts, and I've got I call this my genre shirt, Larry. I got Lost. I have The Office, Futurama, Star Trek's right here next to Battlestar Galactica, Simpsons.
Is that a name your own fandoms shirt? Did you get to fill the boxes on demand?
This is my sort of IDIC shirt. Like wherever I go, someone is fine with this shirt.
Wherever you go.
I don't think that's Lost. I think that's 24. Lost is right there.
But wouldn't that be a concept though? You know, like we have on demand. Like I was doing this, guys, and I don't want to throw you too. So we have a small life support live store now, and we have a few items up there. So go at it if you want to. We're not here to make money, but a lot of people want cups and T-shirts and things, so it's up there. But wouldn't it be cool to have an on-demand T-shirt, like have that frame you've got, only you pick your own 10 shows to put in there?
That would be cool.
Because I take it that's not what you did. You just found that shirt.
No, I just went to Threadless and Threadless.com. I like the shirt, got it. But I like that idea. I think that would be pretty cool, Larry. Trademark it, sell it. Get that money, Larry. Make it happen.
Get that whopping 2% or whatever it is. Yeah, it's a concept though. It's an idea thing. So yeah. Then okay, Larry. We have making some people here.
Making some decisions here. We had news about Star Trek Discovery. It's coming out this year. We got the first preview of that. Yeah, we got a new trailer to the new Lower Decks season.
Which starts August 12th, I think. So that's the one date. Yeah.
Yep, August 12th. And is it a similar thing? August is gonna trigger Lower Decks and then Discovery. Is it the same path?
I think they're gonna. Yeah. And why have a week in between? I mean, they might as well run them one to the next. What threw me was that it had already been announced that Prodigy, the new animated, the different style of animation, the one with Janeway, as the spoilers, no, she's not Charlie Townsend in a box. She's going to be a hologram. But that was all. We all were all kind of figuring that. For the crazy, wacky alien teenagers that find a derelict Starfleet ship and it changes their lives. But it'll be awesome for young adults. That had been said on Nickelodeon to clear, once it runs one run on Paramount Plus, then it would be on Nickelodeon, which is in the Viacom family of stations. So it's not like it's an alien world, and that the deal makes sense now that they're remerged. But since they announced at their upfronts that it would start on Nickelodeon in July or August, well, you count back 10 weeks, that makes it sound like it was going to start, in May or June.
Yeah,
they didn't. But that has not been announced. So maybe Lower Decks will be the first of the new onslaught in August. We don't know. But yeah, we had a Picard season 2 trailer with all the set dressing in it from ages. Yes,
with a big announcement about who is going to be in Picard season 2.
Who is going to be in Star Trek season 2 and Picard season 2? No, I don't know. I was trying to do a who's on first with you. No, it's Q's on first. Q is on first.
Q's on first.
I do know is on second. Yeah.
There we go. So that was a big reveal there. I didn't really see that coming. I thought I didn't think we were going to see Q again unless it was in animated form, like on Lower Decks. And then we had a big announcement on Friday that there is a release date set for the next Star Trek film, which is going to be, was it June 2023? Is that right?
Yeah, June 9th or something, 2023. But I love the way people, lost their undies over this. And it's fine, but once again, it shows how the corporation thinks, because they're like, number one, the press release was on the story was all about Mission Impossible and all these big franchise movies. Yeah. and you read down about 27 paragraphs, and it says, "Oh, and there'll be a Star Trek movie in June of 20." They're just kind of going through the far distant slate, and of course, Trek World lost its collective gawk over. Oh my God! It's like, well, yeah, but it's like that, like, and they're like untitled secret movie. It's like, well, yes, because once again, now we can go back. Are we back to saying Paramount again now? Not CBS. Paramount says.
I have no idea.
And we'll just stick a Star Trek movie in there. It's like whenever, let's start a network. What are we going to do? Oh, we'll have a show. We'll do a Star Trek. What does it matter what it is? We'll just stick a Star Trek world is all going, what is it? Who's in it? Which one? Which of the things is it going to be? And Paramount is like, yeah, we'll just stick one in there. We'll figure it out. Who cares? We'll get one in there.
Yeah, it's
but it'll be something.
It'll be something. We have no idea.
Because there's 4 scripts. People are going, which script? Is it the new one they just commissioned? Is it one of the old ones? It was. It's like, and the studio's like, it'll be something.
Yeah, we don't really know. All we know is Bad Robot. J.J. Abrams' company is producing it. We don't know who's directing it. We don't know the script. Mm-hmm. We don't know if it takes place in the Kelvin timeline or if it takes place elsewhere. Who knows? But I'm excited. We've got a lot of new Star Trek on the horizon. You're right, Larry. I think on the Paramount Plus, formerly known as CBS All Access side, I think Star Trek is a bit more of the headliner and has been treated as such. On the motion picture side, not so much. Which is what we've seen since, I would say, Star Trek Beyond.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not, yeah, I'm not surprised. What I mean is Paramount, the reunited Paramount, Viacom CBS Paramount entity in the movie side has more fish to fry than worrying about a Star Trek movie, I guess. Yeah. Like they're getting their own stuff together. Yeah. So, yeah.
Speaking of fish to fry, we got an episode to do. Hey, folks. So we're talking about making decisions.
I know. Just make a decision and go with. Oh, wait, that is the theme. I've had so much fun with this. Yeah.
Let's open up that briefing room. Let's head into that briefing room. This is the part of the show where we explore the canon that is related to our theme today. Larry, making decisions is something we actually joked about. Where I think we were having a hard time deciding what to do as a topic, and you're like, "Well, why don't we make that the topic, making decisions?" And then I said, "Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that idea."
And then I thought, but they make a decision. Like every show has a decision, and there's no drama. There's no pending incident that has to be resolved. So somebody make a decision. You know what? But and we kid about that, and it's obvious. But some decisions are bigger than others. And I just wanted to say this up. For some reason, when I was in high school, I was not a big poster person. Because if they were Star Trek and I was getting them in a magazine, I didn't want to take them out of the magazine because then it would not be in the magazine anymore.
You're one of those people.
I'm one of those people. Yeah. My action figures are all in the boxes.
The boxes, yeah.
When it was like, get a poster out of your whatever, I wasn't big about celebrity posters outside that. But I had one that was a saying, and I don't know what it says about me or me at 15 or whatever. Anyway, I had a poster that said, "Not to decide is to decide."
Yeah. And it's reminds me of like silence is compliance, and if you're not, if you don't speak up, you're sort of on the side of oppression. A lot of those kind of posters. I think it says a lot about you, and I think it's definitely on brand. And so. There's we start, in a good way, Larry, don't worry. I've actually been very much looking forward to this topic because I think there's in one sense there's a lot of decisions that are made, but on the mental health front, we always try to make this show relevant to your lives right now, and we started on the top of the hour. Talking about vaccines.
Forget the last 10 minutes, but we really do try to make it relevant to you.
Well, the very beginning of the show, we're talking about vaccines, people making decisions about their health and all of that. That is a big part of life right now. But then also, different parts of the world, again, are in different places with this pandemic, but people are having to make difficult decisions about people who are vaccinated are making difficult decisions about how much of my life do I change or how much don't I. Here in the U.S., there was a big interview that came out with Dr. Fauci, who is our sort of infectious disease head of infectious disease in America, you could say. Yeah, our czar in that. And he talked about what decisions he's made since he's been vaccinated. That there are certain things he does do now and certain things that he still continues not to do. So everyone is making big decisions right now. And this is why we thought this episode might be helpful. Mm-hmm. And there's some very big moments in Star Trek where these characters that we love made very big decisions, very consequential decisions. And in our chat community, people have outlined other episodes as well. So, Larry,
wouldn't you say the bigger the budget, the bigger the decision? The bigger the screen, the bigger the.
Do you want to start there? Shall we start with James T?
We could. I technically chronologically had one earlier just because.
I saw that one. Do you want to go with that one first?
Because we're kidding about this, but literally, like every show, the plot revolves around having a resolution because somebody decided to do something. So I mean, it's like but it's like real. So some even in the original series, as I look back at the original series now, as beloved as it is, and as people. Pendulum swing away and then back towards standalone shows and all of that. And it's really driven by what's the aftermarket, not about the storytelling. And back in the day, it was all about let's watch our own ratings and let's watch syndication. So that was the standalone model for a billion, until streaming 10 years ago. But there actually were some, and in hindsight, like Kirk stranding Khan on SETI Alpha 5. In Space Seed was consequential because they got a movie out of it. So, in one way. So there are some shows that actually I was struggling to think what were some of the biggest. Buried alive.
Buried alive.
With my own chest. With my own chest.
It's all you need to survive on a derelict planet, actually. Yeah. If you have a superhuman con chest, that's all you need.
But I was trying to think, even on the model of little weekly episodes where you have to decide something like aside from, one was, and then I got into underdog status because I think obviously the other show that's like the biggest, which also falls into the, City on Edge of Forever was probably like maybe one of the most consequential decisions anyone made. And that was Kirk deciding to kill his girlfriend to save not just the universe, but the time stream that they were in of the universe. Because there were other time streams that would go on just fine without whatever he was going to do in that moment.
Just fine.
Just fine. It's quantum. But
that would be what's that show, Larry? The show on Amazon about
just fine.
If the Nazis and the Japanese Empire did win.
Man in the High Castle.
That would be that timeline. If Kirk didn't make the decision he did. You can see where that timeline goes. Right.
And then you pull a shotgun on Zephyr on Soul Card.
Yeah, the Vulcans. Yeah.
So I did I'm thinking what else, like for the health of Star Trek, maybe another decision that was just as big that gets overlooked a lot. And do you have the image? Can we have our next slide?
As Sulu says in motion picture, a viewer ahead, I believe is what he says, or viewer. I don't know what he says. I'm putting it on the view screen, Larry. It's on. There you go. There's my. There's your friend.
You could argue that maybe Dee thought that he better earn his new upfront billing and his new residual bump, but to start the second season,
Larry, is he holding? Is that the J&J? One shot right there that he's holding?
No. If you look very closely, you can see the blue line and the two dots, and Canon indicates that that's a Pfizer vaccine.
Got it. Okay, that's the Pfizer.
Later on in the 13th season, you find out that that's the code for a Pfizer shot.
Right. That's the K4 factor.
That's the other time stream where we had 12 seasons of original series, and yes,
I would have lived in that timeline.
Bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh my gosh, 12 seasons. It would be like Doctor Who. They would have to like regenerate all the characters.
Doctor Who, right. I don't know. Third base. Okay.
Callback.
Yeah, so anyway, so people overlook the whole thing about, if it hadn't been for McCoy, on the spot, on the run, risking his own life and getting yelled at by T'Pau, much less put away. If he hadn't risked,
Yeah. So, and for people on the podcast, can you explain what the visual was and what episode we're talking about? Because they have no idea; they're not seeing.
Oh, on the podcast. Oh, we have to think. That's right. We have to think, guys. Hello, podcast listeners.
We're coming into you loud and clear, although sometimes not so loud and clear from sunny California.
Attention, workers. No, we had the Niners cracking up. You can't see that on the podcast either. You didn't think I had it in me, did you? Yeah. No. Just don't expect random Kelvin universe lines like that.
That's what I'm here for.
That's what you're here
it's
for.
Important,
it's
Larry. The Kelvin timeline. It's important.
It's a defiant McCoy holding up a hypo. It was I mean,
Yes.
for hypo prop builders, it was like the great prop shot for the hypo, by the way. But no, it's McCoy deciding to give Kirk a triox shot, which he tells T'Pau in a muck time. It will help him compete with the oxygen of Vulcan because he's a human and blah, blah, blah. And of course, what it really is, it's a knockout drug that knocks him out to simulate death, so they can get away with the ruse that Spock is killed. Because in the combat, in the Ponfar combat, in the Caliphie, yada yada, insert your favorite Vulcan phrase here being invented for the first time in this show. That it simulates death, so they get away, and Spock doesn't really have to kill Kirk in his Ponfar combat to the death. So the point here is Troika. Okay, so K3 mini K3 factor. Did you know that the woman playing T'Pau there was married to? Jesus, if I'm going to do this, I better have his name. Peter Lorre. That's Peter Lorre's wife. Peter Lorre.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes. Anyway, if McCoy hadn't done that, Spock, Kirk would be dead. Spock would be in prison. We'd have no show.
The show would be over.
We'd have no series.
They would have to find
Star Trek McCoy every week. But
Larry, they'd have to go back to SETI Alpha 5, get a blood sample from Khan, inject that into Kirk, revitalize him. That would have been the only way.
In another universe.
Maybe in another universe. Well, I want to
Hello. I'm looking for the planet with Khan on it. Well, this is SETI Alpha 5. Okay. I'm sorry.
Oh man, this is how you know it's going to be a good episode.
Anyway, as episodic decision making goes, aside from Khan, which my other point there was, Kirk, Spock, they get all the attention. For once, there's probably a Scotty decision I'm sure I could come up with too, besides drinking a Kelvin under the table with green beverage. But I just wanted to do a non-Kirk Spock decision because I've got one in the movies. If you want to transition onward.
Yeah. Let's go to the movies here.
Please.
So one of the decisions that I really wanted to talk about is this one right over here. So this is where we had. I'll put this on you right here, Larry. So this image right over here is of James T making this consequential decision in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. Specifically, he is against orders going to take the Enterprise and attempt a rescue of what he thinks is Spock, potentially Spock, and we see the crew is sort of coming to support him. We also see Scotty in that moment going to sabotage the Excelsior, and let's kind of break this decision down. I think it's pretty obvious, but let's at least talk it out.
And it's Scotty, so it's sabotage. It's not hands on Kirk.
Sabotage.
Or it'd be sabotage.
Why does Kirk do this, Larry? Why is he breaking?
Because he's Canadian and he just says Oh, wait, why is he doing the plot? He's doing it. He's made a decision to save his friend
Yeah.
again. Because in Amok
Again.
Time, speaking of if you're going to say that, he made the big career decision then to go save him,
Mhm.
and now this is really like it's an echo of that decision on a movie budget.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what is illuminating here is this is another example of when it comes to the way Kirk makes these decisions. He is really prioritizing his friends, his family, the people he loves, the people he's close to, above above any type of Starfleet protocol, above his career. He is prioritizing the people he loves.
What a concept! Yes,
Yes.
which
Okay.
gets lost, like if in here in pandemic time is a thing that gets lost. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the chat, and I shouldn't be doing that while we're actively talking. Yes, very much so. But yeah, I mean, and again, Kirk, Spock, blah blah blah. They make decisions all the time, but that was kind of a yeah, and resonates with people.
Yeah.
The whole thing in the trilogy really got into that. The whole, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one or the few. But that's not you would decide when to adapt that and when to flip it and go for the one versus the
Right. And I mean, that is my daughter trying to get into this room. Let's ignore all of that is happening right now. I am making a decision, Larry, to actively. Little side note. The
to
reason
go
why
on
we
with the
call it.
show. Uh-huh.
The reason why we call it active ignoring when I'm working with parents on how to manage all this disruptive behavior, we don't just call it ignoring, we call it active ignoring because it's an active process. It's hard to
It's
not.
consciously.
Yes, it's hard to not react to that.
Yeah.
I had the whole trilogy, the Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Voyage Home.
Wow,
There
you
are
got
major.
everything.
Yeah, we can talk about Spock sacrificing himself for the needs of the many and making that decision. We can talk about Kirk sacrificing the needs of the many for the one, and then we can also talk about the Voyage Home and the decisions they're making to preserve this sort of future and the planet. There's a lot there, but yeah, let's actually go to. Actually, let's take a few examples from our comments section
I was just
from our
looking,
community.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So let's actually, in the spirit of going through canon in linear order, Zahir mentioned Riker's decision to fire on Picard Locutus. That was not one that kind of came to my mind, but that was, the decision that ruined many people's summers as they were waiting for Best of Both Worlds Part 2. I think that's kind of flips what we're talking about on the head. We're talking about a decision where Kirk and Spock were both sacrificing their best interests.
Risking.
Yeah,
Right.
they're risking themselves for others. Here we have Riker making a decision
Yeah.
that will potentially kill who he thinks was Jean-Luc Picard
Right. In order to save millions and billions.
in order for the many.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is your normal type, Star Trek. Well, that's your Starfleet decision. Your Star Trek decision is to save a Spock or save Picard or do whatever you have to do. Yeah, the Starfleet decision is to save the billions over the one person, right?
Yeah, and I think it is what we're seeing here is a code of contact, code of conduct, and an internal moral compass here for these characters. The decisions they make reveal a lot about who they are, and I think Kirk has it. Kirk and Spock and Riker here are guided by what they think is the right thing to do for the people in their lives. And Riker made a decision that I think Picard would have made himself. If roles were reversed and it was Riker who was Locutus, I think Picard would make that same decision because it wasn't just about your crew at that point. It's about Earth. It's about Soul. It's about the Federation. It's about stopping the Borg here. And they're doing what they think is right. Their decisions are really grounded in a moral compass.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. I was looking at the chat and I was seeing some names. I'm going to do a couple of shout outs. So
Let's do
Heather
some shout-outs.
Hernandez, I don't on YouTube. Are you one of our other Heathers? And this is if not, welcome. So yay. And then another name here had a great point. But so my friend Lynn McLeod, yay, Lynn, great to see you. Great producer behind some of the things you've enjoyed, folks. Lynn said, so was the shot we got in the military with the air compressed guns based on Star Trek hypospray? And I say, yes, it was. Or out of the same thought stream or whatever. Remember those first, bang.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was like a kickback even. It would be, but thump. It was like a stapler only with a million tiny, it probably hurt more than a stapler. Million tiny little jets. Anyway, but yes. And of the movie I don't know. Again, all these characters, all these shows have 47,000 decisions that were major. Filtering out, what we're going to say and what people in the chat are going to say is, there's a million choices. But
on the topic of not first contact.
Charlotte says, while we're on the original series, Charlotte says, how about McCoy deciding to inoculate himself with his experimental vaccine in Miri and had a bad reaction? That's it. Another one I thought of from the original series was, on Bones' side, is McCoy deciding to take the torture of the Vians in Gem, which is an episode I don't really think about because they had like no budget for scenery. For sets, but that's another one where it's McCoy that saves the day because Kirk and Spock are too busy arguing about who's going to be the hero, and he goes, "Oh, shut up, I'll do it." Bang.
And Larry, to get back to Heather, Heather was the same Heather that called into the show way back when we did.
That's what I thought, but it's different. I didn't remember that's what I wondered. But anyway, it's good to see you anyway, Heather. So yeah.
We were just talking about Best of Both Worlds, and Scott has a great comment right over here. Riker deciding about his career again, and not deciding not to become captain.
Okay, fine, Scott. Show his comment because that's one we picked for an image.
Yeah, this is the one we actually wanted. We had planned to talk about, and this is one that happens over and over and over again. It feels like every other episode is Riker deciding not to take a command. Yeah. No, I know it doesn't happen that often, but
not to decide is to decide. Actually, he does consciously decide not that.
Well, and so this is a bit of a different decision, Larry. We're not talking about life or death here, as we are with so many of these other episodes. But let's kind of break this down because it's not until the Titan after Nemesis does Riker finally take his own command. So why do you think Riker keeps saying no to his own starship?
Well, he has the conversation with Troy in is it Best of Both Worlds 2? One of the episodes where he does that, and I think it's 2, where he says, "What's wrong with me?" And she says, "Well, it's you're on your own pace. Don't let anybody else tell you." I mean, have pros and cons and do all the decision making tools that I don't know. Maybe one of those layman things you might get into by the time we get to Counselor's Log and Away Mission. I don't know. But don't be reckless about it. But if the decision you come to is to stay put for now, as long as you're conscious and aware that you're making a decision based on these things, then it's fine. I think it's basically her, don't let the outside world unduly force you just for the sake of change. Sometimes change is not the right thing at the right time.
It is.
Thank you, Edith Keeler.
It is interesting that Starfleet allows him to say no. As they say in the Kelvin timeline,
as they say in Lower Decks too, when when Tandy and Rutherford got to undo their transfer and come back home
Right, right.
with a little bit of wheeler dealering, but yeah.
You know, I don't imagine in many military organizations that you can sort of say no to this kind of a decision. But what we see in Kelvin Timeline is Pike describes Starfleet as a peacekeeping armada, and it has a scientific arm, and so I can see that
We'll
this
have peace. That's a peacekeeping armada. Okay.
yeah, right. I can see in this peaceful, scientific, somewhat military organization that maybe there would be a little bit more say in your postings and all of that. But I think for Riker, he doesn't want to miss out on not only the adventures that the flagship of the Federation will have, but also he doesn't want to miss out on what he can learn from Jean-Luc. You know, the Titan's a good ship when he finally gets it, but the impression I get is the ships he was being offered are no way near the flagship of the Federation.
Yeah,
they're not Galaxy class.
Speaking of good ships, I just thought of the USS Lollipop. Really, it was like, wow. And on the level of first season Next Gen, that was like high comedy. That was totally witty. Yeah. Was Arsenal Freedom. Anyway, he's telling the fake image of the guy, of his one-time friend. What ship are you on? Is the USS Lollipop. What? Yeah, it's a good ship. I mean, it was like, wow, big stretch. The committee came up with that joke first season. Wow. Okay, yay. Leonard Majlish let them. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm K3ing here. Anyway.
There's we got a great comment from Libby here. Speaking of Next Generation, and this will also transition us to DS9. Libby says there's Worf's decisions about Alexander, even though they're often forced on him. Many single parents deal with similar issues in real life, especially those with jobs where you aren't home all the time, military, truck drivers, etc. And there's a lot. We could do a whole episode on Worf and Alexander. I think there's and I love that DS9 continues that arc.
I think there's dilithium in them hills. Yes, we should write that one down.
yeah. Let's write that one down so we don't forget it. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Wait, is that a hypo or a pen you're holding there? An invisible hypo or an invisible pen?
Check it out, Larry. Check it out. I just replicated a pen. There it is. It just materialized. Okay. I've got, people don't know, but I've got a little replicator here right below camera, just in case you ever, do I need some Post-its? Boom, replicated. Do I need?
Is that an original replicator or is that a replicator?
TNG era, as my preferred technology comes from.
I was waiting for the sound effect. That's how you have cheap visual effects in Star Trek. Yeah. Yes. When you're in a phaser battle, can you see my frame here? When you're in a phaser battle and they shoot one phaser and you see it go off, and then the next guy to shoot does this. So you see the arm and you have a sound, but you don't actually see the $1,000.
You don't see the They saved a little money on that.
It was $1,000 back in the day. They would say, "Yep, phaser beam, $1,000." That's what it was.
But Worf doesn't seem very well equipped to make some of these decisions. So
he's got a phaser and a tricorder. What do you mean? He's got everything.
Oh, not that kind of equipment. He's got his batleth too. But in terms of being a parent, he wasn't there from the very beginning. And he also,
which wasn't his fault.
Which wasn't his fault. Yeah. He was also adopted, and he doesn't have his experience as being a parent must be influenced by the experience he had being a child. And he never really had much contact with Klingon parenting. He doesn't also know how to raise a son who is identifying more with this human side. He's not really in the best spot to make a lot of these decisions, which is something that Jadzia kind of helps him to like think through later on in DS9. So I think Libby says it well when she says a lot of these decisions are really they're kind of placed upon him, and he might not be in a good spot to really make these decisions himself. He's trying, but
yeah. I just want to throw back out here. I was reading part 2. Like, go down to read the chat, Luke. Where that came from, I don't know. No, so hey, Lynn. Once
stay
again,
on target.
Stay on target.
Stay on target.
Lynn, thank you. That's one of my great kid. Don't get cocky. That's my favorite Star Wars line.
You are definitely the Han Solo of the life support live bunch.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, Lynn said he's totally vaccinated now, but he had COVID already, so he's had his vaccine after having COVID. But that's awesome. That's the whole thing about being catchable. What's the medical word I want here?
I don't know.
Where people can catch the virus from you, even though if you're asymptomatic. There's a word for that. Anyway, but
yeah.
So Scott said, our moderator Scott said, his husband, who he thinks is younger than you, he went to a community vaccination place and they offered him a choice of vaccines. So he went to the COVID buffet or the vaccination buffet, and he got a single shot. Anyway, I've not heard anybody...
Most buffets right now are COVID buffets, actually, if you go.
But I meant to get rid of it, not to catch it. But I had not heard of that. So anyway, just throwing that out there.
Wait. Zahir just said, if Larry is Han, then is Ali Chewie? Zahir, I was going for a bit more Luke, but Chewie's fine too. I'll play Chewie too. I can be Larry's muscle. I can be Larry's muscle. Totally.
That one. Okay, yes. Be the one I get the shot in. Okay.
Let's talk about Deep Space Nine. So,
yes.
With Deep Space
Nine's pilot, as you know, all the pilots start off with the big choice: do I want to be in this series or not?
That was the question Patrick Stewart was asking himself. It's like, what is this show? What is this Star Trek? I belong on stage in theater.
Yeah. I mean, there's billions. Yeah, and we were laughing about that too. There are 40 billion K7s K3s I can make and K7s. There's more than one K7, guys. There's a million K3 backstage decisions when we get there that I can make too. Yeah. So I was trying to think of a different angle on one, but. Every series begins with one major decision. I'm going to stay. I'm going to leave. And so, this one is if Sisko hadn't stayed, if he'd bugged off at the first sign of more depression, then, we wouldn't have had what would have happened with the emissary in Bajor, and would have just been 20 years later when he finally, fate and all that.
Let's sort of unpack this. And you know what's funny about this, Larry? When I brought up this example, I meant later on during the Dominion War, his decision to flee Deep Space Nine. But I think it does. Oh. But I think both are really good examples here.
One was before the other.
Yeah. No, I think both are really good examples. So in Emissary, we see Sisko is experiencing a lot of the fallout of the trauma of Wolf 359, losing his wife in that battle, and having to, much like we were talking about with Alexander, although very different circumstances, he's now going to be a single father. And he's going to be the sole parent, not a future he had anticipated. And here he is from his mind, Locutus is ordering him on this new mission. And so why does he stay? Like, he arrives, the ship is in disarray. O'Brien is trying to fix all this stuff. Nothing's working.
O'Brien, who decided to go to DS9 and drag his family away from his wife and young daughter away from their comfy existence on a ship.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a promotion, and that was one of the reasons why he was, he gets to fix up this whole station.
Woo!
Why does Benjamin decide to stay on DS9?
Well, you're the Niner. You put it in your. Well, you could say he's inspired by his encounter with the prophets. He's intrigued by that. He's intrigued. It's a lot of changes. I mean, he sees Dax as Jadzia. That's intriguing. I mean, he takes it a little. Kai Opaka reads his paw and says he should. It's a very for a matriarchal society. The fact that they're reading everybody's paws and not their maws is amazing. But she reads his paw and says, "Oh, you should do this." I mean, there's decisions in every. I'm moving right along. There's decisions everywhere. I mean, Kira decides to deal with these humans. Odo decides. Quark decides to stay and not hightail it out of there.
Yeah, I think
there's decision making going on.
Libby says here, sometimes you find home in unexpected places. And I think there is some sense of this can be home. This can be a new beginning. And I get the impression that Sisko thinks he can really make a difference here. And there's a lot of important work to be done. And there's opportunity here. And Karen talks about O'Brien and family. It is a true military family with all its ups and downs, and I totally agree with that, Karen.
Well, I think the depression that Sisko, the funk that he had been in for 3 years since Jennifer's loss, and he was, he did good work. He was treading water at Utopia Planitia, working on what became the Defiant. It's good work, but it's like, yeah. And Picard even says, well, I would think after 3 years of boring stuff on Mars that you would want to get out and do something exciting. And he's like, no. I just think it's the insane things that are happening to him, going through the wormhole, having a prophet encounter and all of that. It's like totally shakes him. It's like shock therapy. It's like, whoa. And he can't help but be, thrown out of his funk, basically his depression, his funk, whatever you want to say. And I will look at the universe through new eyes, kind of a shock.
Yeah, I feel like I need to do a mini counselor's log. ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, commonly referred to as shock therapy, is totally a thing. And you don't go like, whoa. Usually people are...
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant the follow-up to Rocky Horror, which no one knows about, the sequel movie called Shock Therapy. But okay, go ahead.
Well, but ECT is totally a thing, and it's used to treat very, very difficult to treat depression. And for some people, it definitely works. Small side effect of a little bit of memory loss from right before the procedure and right after the procedure, but it's done in a very safe way now. And it's very one of the last resorts to treating.
Okay. Well, that's nothing compared to finding out later on your actual mother was an alien and that you were really supposed to be the...
There's whole that. Actually, if we were just unpacking Sisko's life here a little bit, Zahir says Sisko's decision to lock down DS9 when the aphasia virus broke out. Look at that. An example that's very relevant to right now.
Isn't it amazing how an episode like Babel just kind of like, first season DS9, it's just in the stream. It's just a blur. It's not the pilot. It's not the finale, and it's not duet. So it's just in that blur. And now everybody goes, ooh, Babel, ooh, pandemic response, ooh. It's amazing what history does to our perspective on Star Trek.
Well, and we've got Nathaniel mentions In the Pale Moonlight starts with Sisko making a strong decision with regard to the Romulans. That whole episode is decision after decision. That's another one I could. That's like tapestry levels. I can talk about that episode in almost every episode of Life Support Live.
And if you want to, I can live with it. I can live with it.
Yes. We also have. Speaking of DS9, before we get to Voyager, there's a big decision we want to talk about there too. And we've been talking a lot about the captains and first officers here, but I think they often are making those big decisions. And a doctor, and a very important doctor.
I got an underling in.
Underling. I got another build title character from Star Trek. Victoria mentions DS9's strange bedfellows. Damar decides to rebel and become the key to saving the Alpha Quadrant. Yeah. And that decision, I think, is a really, really interesting one to unpack here. Damar, who loves his Kanar.
I think of all the things that happen on this that might be on your drinking game, I think that's like the most annoying one. So, okay.
The Kanar one? Well, Kanar is annoying. It's
Because it
very...
always sneaks up on me. Somebody mentions Damar, and then 10 minutes later, it's who loves his Kanar. I'm like, oh.
Blame the writer's room, Larry. Blame them, not me. I'm just putting
Blame
two
the
and two
corn
together.
syrup. Yeah, Kanar. Yeah, whatever. It's so good. Yeah.
So, when we Damar's arc is just so fantastic, as so many of the characters are. Yeah. I mean, he has like one line, I think, in the first time we ever...
He's like firing phasers or whatever.
Right.
Like yes.
Which,
walk in, sir.
And then he becomes the leader of the Cardassians after Gul Dukat is very much not so much the leader anymore. And then we see him turn his back on the Dominion and become this rebel, in much the same way as we do see the Bajorans rebel against the Cardassians. And then Kira sort of teaching him and his people the ways of resistance. So I have to ask, the annoying question I've been asking is, why does he make that decision? Why does he decide to turn his back on the Dominion? I think we have a very clear answer in the show.
Well, he's more loyal to his own people than he is to these interlopers, right?
Yeah. I think he saw the Dominion as an organization that was going to lift up the Cardassian people.
Well,
and that's
he was also following his protege. He doesn't have the insane ego that Dukat does.
Yes,
and he can put his conscience aside. I don't know, a little thing like he can serve the greater good in his mind, like killing what's her name, Dukat's daughter. Yeah, he can kill Zial. He can do little bits along the way, but when it comes down to it, and it's finally on his shoulders to make a decision, he's much more the patriot and the calm, sane person. Even though he's got bloody hands, but like it's the same thing that Kira comes to in her own way. She's like, he's been my adversary. He killed my friend, but he's seen the light, and now it's my duty. My decision now is to help him, even though this is like an icky thing. I can see he's turning. He's made a good decision, so I'm going to help him do that, even though a year ago I would have said, what are you, crazy? So, yes.
Yeah, I think he's very much a patriot.
Her decision about it gives even more weight to his decision.
Yeah, he wants he really wants to do what's best for Cardassia and his people.
What?
For Cardassia.
Okay, that was what I expect. Okay, I'll do the poke.
For the record, Charlotte said it first in the comments section.
Oh, okay. For the record. To the journey.
And there's a lot more we could talk about DS9. But let's
to the journey. Yeah.
Let's head to the Delta Quadrant actually. And again, we have another captain example, and we have another decision that happens in the pilot that affects the entire next 7 seasons. And she
decides to take along Neelix and Kes. Oh no, wait.
She decides to try that Leola root stew. No, this is probably the biggest decision we see in the course of Star Trek Voyager and their journey home to destroy the caretaker and caretaker's array. But that decision echoes throughout the entire series, because Janeway is faced with the same type of decision over and over and over again. So let's sort of break apart, not break apart. Let's process this decision a little bit.
Break down, analyze.
Let's break down. Yeah. Thank you. Let's unpack Janeway's decision a bit.
It's such a aughts buzzword, but go ahead.
Ezra Klein, I love listening to Ezra Klein's podcast because he has a few things he says a lot. He's like, I just want to push you a little bit on that, and let's just I want to unpack what you mean by destroying the caretaker's array. So Larry, let's do that.
Okay.
I think we get a pretty good breakdown of Janeway's decision making in Caretaker. What's your understanding? Why,
Here's okay. This is a you talk about a soapbox. This is what I never understood. And by the way,
folks? We're getting two Larry Nemecek soapboxes in one episode. You are in
the
for a treat.
idea, don't give me the thing about it's a pilot and you have to do a whole damn show. So, the show would be over then. If the idea here was for Janeway to follow the Prime Directive, then it wasn't her choice to get sucked in by the Caretaker, by the Nassine, the male Nassine. If that was not her decision. Okay, fine.
Right.
So they're thrown. People die. They're thrown. They're disheveled. They're thrown together with their enemy. These people. They're okay. And her. They go. They're trying to find the way home. They're investigating what this is all about. They talk to the guy. They have a bead on it anyway. The way to follow the Prime Directive is like, oh, we fell through this wormhole. We're just gonna back out of here as fast as we can.
yeah. Woo! Let's get out of here.
But it's like somebody is sitting here going, oh, okay, but if we want a series, if we want to attract an audience, we have to have some conflict. So how do we get that? Well, for her to talk later on about how she did what she had to do. If she's going to do that, it's like, well, if you're going to follow the Prime, I could, she interferes in the evolution of whatever happened to letting what's-her-face's planet crack up? I mean, it's the series should not be another Prime Directive debate, but she interferes in the evolution of the Ocampa and the Kazon Ogla there. If they hadn't arrived right then, they would have shown up and it would have been status quo. They show up and blow up the Caretaker and totally upset the evolved status quo of the place. Like they totally they totally come in and interfere. I just don't understand the logic of how she's being a good Starfleet captain. She's like, I've got to follow my, so not only does she not get her people home because she blows up their way home, she's interfered up a storm here with these people locally. And then she's got to deal. And then the very thing the Prime Directive is supposed to prevent, which is unexpected consequences, for a year or two, they're dealing with having, pissed off these people. They're all the different tribes of the Kazon because the word gets around. So anyway, I've never understood. And then on top of that, it's a planet without water, which I know Jerry later on said that was stupid. But anyway, that's my rant about. Voyager's a great series, and I appreciate it more and more as the years go by. And I would, I'm not saying let's not have a series, but the whole logic of the plot to launch the show is she's gonna follow the Prime Director or whatever it was she justified it by interfering big time the way they're trained not to in such an obvious. If that was back home, she would never have done that. But anyway.
Well, and this is and when I say I think we get a great.
You asked me about her decision making. That's I don't know what her decision.
Yeah. No. I think this is
series. We got to piss off the Maquis before we bond with them.
This is a little bit of what I want. Why I said we get such a great breakdown of this decision because it is revisited over and over and over again. Not only does Janeway does she encounter the same decision later on where she can find shortcuts home or she can take actions that might change the local power at the cost of changing the local politics. She can get her crew home or at least get a bigger shortcut home. She's constantly having to reface this decision.
The spatial trajector, yeah.
And
somehow winds up on a Borg cube in Romulan space in Picard. But go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, and the thing about this is Janeway has struggled with this decision as well. We see this in later episodes that Janeway is feeling guilt. She is ruminating about this decision, all of that. Yep. And I love Zahir has this great thought experiment. What would each Starfleet captain or first officer or ship's doctor do in Janeway's place? And we could spend a whole we could spend hours debating this.
Well,
But
he earlier had said also, just to throw that, what role did her gender or species play in her
yes.
decision? Would a character of a different gender or species make a different decision? Much less a different captain or first officer that we know. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we just play it out,
It's a Zahir twofer.
yeah, it's a it's a Zahir twofer. If we play out Zahir's question and just look at the captains, Kirk, Picard, Cisco, Archer, Kelvin, Kirk, I don't know, and Michael, Pike. There's a lot. There's a lot of captains here.
If it'd been Kirk, it would have been Kirk in Chakotay's place, flying the thing up into the array. If it'd been Michael, she would have been in a spacesuit doing it naked with 2 photon grenades. She's going to get up close and land on it and then blow it up while she's standing there. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say if it was Kirk, he would blow up the array, but not before giving a big speech about it. Picard would probably give a lecture about this in the briefing room. No, in all seriousness,
Picard would have found a way to save the Nassine from going into rock.
yeah. Actually, I think that's a really good point. I think Cisco. It depends. Are we talking early Cisco or late Cisco? I think late Cisco. Yeah, right. Shaved head Cisco or hair Cisco. I think later Cisco would have blown up the
shaved head Cisco. Dum dum dum.
I don't think season 5, 6, or 7 Cisco would have done anything but get his crew home.
And I could live with that.
Yeah. I think Archer wouldn't really know what to do. I think Archer would be really torn about this decision. But
well, Archer would just talk kind of slow about it for a while and then come to a decision. Okay.
Klingot. Janeway's decision to blow up. If she had used the array to send her crew home, what would have happened next? The Kazon Ogla would have gotten to the array and then used it to do what? What were the Kazon going to do?
Just suck up more technology they didn't know. I mean, the Ocampa were underground. The Kazon were on the surface. It was just a status quo. I mean, the Voyager disrupted. Now you're making me think. They get there. Well, Neelix pops out. Neelix drags them there. It's Neelix going there because of Kes is the inciting incident. I mean, they wouldn't have a clue about it because of that. They're just picking up the pieces after the jump, and they run into Neelix, and he takes them there to get his girlfriend out.
I'll take you there to the Ocampa.
Kathleen. Okay. Anyway, I had not thought of the pilot this way. I just so used to making fun of it, but it was such a great thing. Anyway.
Well, Larry. We're talking about Voyager.
I know we're talking about Voyager, and a lot of people, though, it just dawned on me, maybe we shouldn't have gone with this pilot decision. A lot of people that know and love Janeway and Voyager would say that the biggest decision Janeway ever made was Bride
of Chaotica. No, no. I was just gonna say that. I was gonna make a stupid transition to Tuvix as well. Charlotte mentioned Tuvix. There's an infamous Tuvix decision. I think Tuvix is one of the best episodes
ICD, as it's known in the psychology world. Yeah.
I think it's one of the best episodes of Voyager, and there's no right answer here. She's faced with this impossible decision. If folks don't remember, a transporter accident has combined Tuvok and Neelix into Tuvix.
And Neely.
And while the doctor and I think B'Elanna are kind of working on trying to figure out what the heck happened, enough time goes by that Tuvix is now existing as another person and has formed his own relationships with the crew. And they discover a way to undo the problem and bring back Tuvok and Neelix at the cost of killing this new life form, Tuvix. And the kicker here is Tuvix doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to cease to exist. What does Janeway do? And what Janeway ends up doing is ordering the procedure and ordering what can be viewed as the death of Neelix, but the revival of Tuvok and Neelix. This is an impossible decision, Larry. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer here.
Well, and I know people, years ago, the licensing, my friends that work in licensing years ago, Marion and John, they have had a running debate about this and a thing. Because back in the day when the show aired, well, of course it's continuity. They're regulars. And Tuvix is the guest star. Of course she's going to bring back the two, right? But, and then it became this blown up thing. Don't look at it like a TV show, look at it like real life. But even then, yeah, it was a tragedy but it's math. How is this not just about math? People who are Team Tuvix, it's like, okay, but you've killed two people in return for one. I mean, if it's nothing else, and people are going to say, yeah, but Neelix doesn't count. Okay, shame on you. But I mean, isn't it at the very least? Isn't it like you've got two existing life forms that had a full and I don't know. I just never got it. That I mean, it's hard. It's a decision, and this guy is in front of you and he's existing. But if nothing else, isn't it about you had two lives and one? And what do you they're not here to speak for themselves now, so they are not given a voice. And there were two of them, and they didn't ask for this transformation. And I mean, I don't know. It was never this compelling. For so many people I know, it's become this compelling moment of all Star Trek is in this one moment here. And Janeway is either a demon or she's a hero or she's a pitied, hero, leader with a dilemma that was impossible to solve. But to me, I'm like, well, it was 2 versus 1.
I think it's a few different things. So on the one hand,
math. It's simple. Next question. No, I'm kidding.
It's a few things. And the first one I think is what Nathaniel mentions here. Janeway did do something wrong. She killed off a character who was way more interesting than 2 bland characters.
Okay.
So I think that's part of it. Is Tuvix was quite beloved by the fandom in the 1 hour we had with him. People might like his costume.
The uniform.
I love that even the uniform is blended. Like, really, folks? Is that how the transporter works? But
you don't mess around with Starfleet technology. It's smart stuff. You combine that into a paisley.
So that's the first thing. I think people just love the character of Tuvix, which I am guilty of. I love Tuvix as well. But I think the second thing that makes this complicated is transporter tech. Once you start thinking about it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a early TNG episode where something happens with Picard, and then I think he dies or something, but they revive him based on an earlier transporter buffer.
Frakes is what they call it. Yeah.
And then speaking of Frakes, we've got Tom and we have William. And Thomas and William Riker, and
that actually had a decent scientific explanation of reflection.
Sure, the beam bounced back, and there was 2. Sure, okay, we got some science there. But I think when we just kind of look at those 2 examples, in one, Jean-Luc is saved because there's a previous signal of his that is stored, and in the other, we preserve both life forms and we consider them to be equals. And so here, like, isn't there like a third option of like getting their signals from the buffer and bringing them back? But then that introduces a lot of complexity, because if you can do that, then you can just start cloning people left and right.
Do anything. Well,
so it's
I think there was a moment after that where they went, "Wow, that was wrong. Let's never do that again." Like,
Yeah, I think
that was second season, and there was a lot of regret over that. And even like the science people have gone like, okay, let's just not talk about this, or let's like come up with some explanations why we can never do this again, because yeah, it would fundamentally change the nature of life. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. So there's the transporter gets really, once you start thinking about it, it gets really complex and terrifying.
They were
You know,
gone.
I'm still of the belief that when we transport and rematerialize someone, we are destroying them and then recreating them. And that seems terrifying.
Well, it's not terrifying to me. It's like if that's really what's happened, and think how many millions of people and billions of people have beamed in 200 years that we know, like watching it on film. It's just I just prefer to not go there.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
go
yeah.
there.
You kind
I
of
just
have to
prefer
not think of it.
figure out. I prefer to take the old. You can't go fast. Nothing travels faster than light. Aha! The thing going warp speed is not traveling faster than light itself. It's in a subspace bubble that's bending space. You know, the folded piece of paper thing. And oh, well, now it makes sense. I'm going from here to here, but I'm going only this far, you know, in a bubble that lets me do that. So it's like the equivalent of going warp is what happens to us in beaming.
Okay. I like that texture.
That's just my sanity defense. Otherwise, I couldn't take the fact, because I've heard that for years. We're all killed and reborn every time we beam.
Yeah.
And it was one thing to have the fifth or sixth person say that in the original series, but after 47 different sequels and 3 centuries of being depicted, I'm just like, no, that's obvious. That's not what's happening.
Well, and with Discovery, we have even more centuries of that happening. Let's kind of round out our canon a little bit. Let's talk about Archer, and
because we didn't even mention like the Doctor's Sophie's Choice in Latent Image, where he had to decide.
There's a lot.
There's
a
some,
lot we could talk about.
Yeah.
But when it came to Archer, he very clearly makes decisions involving the Vulcans and Andorians that lead to the founding of the Federation, and it seems like every time
I had to stitch that together. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for doing that. As he encounters the Andorians, he consistently is making decisions the Vulcans have not made, and those decisions are the ones that clear the path to the founding of the Federation and the alliance that forms.
But it is true.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Good one. So let's just talk about Archer just for a moment.
Making decisions when you don't have a rule book.
Yes. Yeah. So can we just talk about that? And this might be our last big example because we need to get on. We've got more stuff to talk about here. So we're going to make a decision here. We're going to end it with Enterprise.
Okay.
But why does Archer go a different path than the Vulcans have, and that the Andorians anticipate him going?
I'm sorry. I was reading chat. What did you say? Sorry. Sorry, teacher. I'll admit it. I was not paying attention in class.
Shran.
Yes.
Archer.
Yes.
Soval.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Archer make these decisions that Soval and Shran do not anticipate him making?
It's just the role that Archer falls into. I mean, he's the guy that was distrustful of Vulcans. He had his own baggage. But I think this whole thing about them being so naive and going out into space and like talking to school kids like they're NASA astronauts in orbit, that naivete that got blasted away after the first year or two, and then the Xindi year. And by the time they survived the Xindi, it's like, well, hell, we've been to hell and back. I mean, like, you guys are like pipsqueaks compared to where we've been here in the last year. And it's just a role that he can fall into as being the third eye for both of them. And they are so into their ruts.
Yeah.
I think it just falls into him naturally. I mean, he's already been through a track that, they had, it wasn't Starfleet Academy under the Federation guys, but Earth had a Starfleet Service Academy, and he and, all the other captains came through it. And yet he's the one that consistently rises to the top. He's the one that got chosen to be captain of the Enterprise, first warp fight, all of that we've got in backstory, aside from what's his face being killed. But he's the one that's risen to the top, so it's not like outlandish that he should be there, and it's not like everybody else from Earth would fall into this role, so he is unique. But he is in this unique place among his own people, and then his own people going out and meeting these guys, or dealing with them further. And the Andorians are fresh. He's got his baggage with the Vulcans, and at the same time, he's able to overcome that first contact with Shran when they're all like under guard, like they're taken like hostages. But he's able to see easily. His skill set is that he can see where they all have more in common than they don't. And that's even before they have the united, eventually they wind up being united against Romulans. And even the Zindi year, he can take the Andorian help against the Zindi there. But getting back to this intractable Vulcan Andorian thing that they've stumbled into, that apparently the Vulcans didn't bother to tell them about, another bit there of arrogance, Vulcan arrogance. But I don't know. It's like it just feels natural for the human to be the third party and not take sides. And not only to not take sides, but try to go, oh, you guys, we're stronger with you than without you. It's like there's more that unites us than divides us. And that's it. And I think the thing that he's carried it with the Vulcans, it's kind of a perverse thing. He can go, ha, 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 ha. Well, you guys, there's no reason to hate these guys. Look, you really have more in common than you know. I mean, I think there's a little bit of, he gets a kick out of helping them get there. And then everything changes after the Vulcan trilogy anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
because he's
it's certainly
seeing the Vulcans in a whole new light, and he's given hope in a different way. He sees possibilities for the Vulcans that he didn't know before anyway. And then he sees the Andorians after they have the big reveal. There's nothing like not trusting people until everything that they were saying that made you not trust them. It's like, oh, that they were completely right. They were totally right to be paranoid. Shame on you guys. I mean, after going through that as the third party, it's very easy for him to fall into that thing. So I don't know,
it's definitely been a long road.
Way more than I
from
thought about the
there to
22nd
here.
century in ages. So okay, yes.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of what we were talking about in our resolving conflict episode. I think months ago now. I have no idea. I don't know if that was last like August we did that, or November or December. I have no idea. It's sometime in the past we did that episode.
Was it like 2017 or something? I think.
Who knows? I have no idea what happened before last week. But we talked about the the opportunities of a crisis. And one of the things I think Archer introduces here is this new perspective. And yeah, he's got his baggage with the Vulcans, but he doesn't have the biases that the Vulcans have with the Andorians. So the human presence does create this very different dynamic between these three different species. And Archer is able to make decisions that are not based in an entrenched conflict. And sometimes, I think we talked about this with the peace processes. Sometimes you need a outside neutral third party to come in and resolve some of the conflict that two people have had entrenched with each other. So
or any two sides, yeah.
Yeah. So let's actually transition here to
We'll
the
save those
counselor's
other
log.
things we'll save those last points for hailing frequencies if we ever get there. So okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the counselor's log. This is the part of the show where I do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the psychology behind what we're talking about. And so, Larry, I had so much stuff prepared.
It's like the K3 for psychology. So.
It is like the K3 for psychology. There's so much I had prepared, and I'm gonna just do some of the highlights in the interest of time. So, when it comes to decision making, we have two processes that really are at play. We've got a fast decision-making process, and we have a slow decision-making process. If anyone's interested in learning more about this, there's a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which summarizes all of this and goes into way more detail. But the fast way of thinking, it's much more emotional based. We make a lot more generalities based upon experiences we've had. We usually go fast when there's a time pressure put upon us, or we're very exhausted, or we're not, we don't think it's a big decision we have to make, or we're in a very emotional state. We make these fast decisions that are based upon generalities of our experiences.
Would this be like a gut decision, a snap decision?
Yeah. These are the gut snap decisions that we make. And we also have a slow process of decision making, which is very deliberative. It's very analytical. We kind of ponder things over and over. And there are some downsides to both, but there's some clear advantages to both. So new doctors, when they're making decisions in the ER about who to admit, they make very slow decisions. They ponder over all the information. They're looking at all the records. They're thinking about it. They might talk to colleagues. They're very deliberative. But veteran doctors, veteran ER doctors, when they're making a decision, it's a fast decision. It's admit or not, and they very easily are able to make that decision. So it's not that one is better than the other, but it is based on who you are and the experiences you have, you approach these decisions very differently. Going back to Riker, he was early on, should I take the promotion or not? He's approaching it in a very slow way, very deliberative, very thoughtful, examining things, talking to Deanna, doing all of this stuff. But then he gets offered it so many times, he's already done all the work before. It's a fast decision. No, not ready. No, not yet. I've already done that. Larry, you and I, when we started doing Life Support Live, what topic to do every week was a slow decision-making process for us. A very slow one. We'd spend hours trying to figure out how we're going to do the show this week.
Clumps of 5 minutes, maybe, but okay. Yeah.
early on, it was hours. Yeah.
Well, we had a list. We started off with, well, here's 10 or 20 or 30. This will get us started. Yeah.
But now it's a very fast process. We can make decisions very quickly. And so different things can kind of push us into a fast or slow decision-making process. Time pressure always pushes people to make a fast decision. Emotions definitely push people into making fast decisions. And the fast decision-making process can get so biased in so many ways. How a decision is framed can completely bias how we make a decision about it. We're much more motivated to avoid loss than we are to make gains. We are much more motivated to when we're making fast decisions, we go by our feelings. This is when people are gambling and they say, I'm on a streak. They're making decisions that are very fast based upon their feelings. They feel good, so they think that good outcomes are going to come. But we all are vulnerable to these type of biases. We're also vulnerable to when we're in a fast decision-making mode, we're vulnerable to making decisions based on what we think is normal. So hotels can get you to reuse towels by saying most of our guests that stay in this hotel reuse their towels at least once. You're not approaching that in a slow way. You're approaching that in a fast decision-making way, and you're like, oh, everyone does this. Okay, I'll do this too. And so we can nudge people into making better decisions, like investments in retirement, opt in or opt out. If you have to opt out, which means make a bunch of different steps to get out of doing something, you're probably not going to do it. And we see this in the United States with organ donation. Most people in the United States, I wrote this down, 85% of Americans say they approve of organ donation. But we have an opt-in organ donation system. So only 28% of Americans have given their consent for their organs to be donated. In other countries, they have an opt-out system. So when you get your license, you're automatically donating your organs unless you opt out for it, and so you get much higher rates there. So a lot of times people can get pushed into fast or slow decision-making things, and sometimes people can be manipulated in good ways and sometimes not so good ways. When we get to the away mission, I'm going to give a few tips on how to deal with fast and slow decisions a little bit better. But before we get to that, we got a K3 to navigate through. Larry,
yeah, we do.
what do you got for us?
I will try to speed it along. So K3, if you're new with us, and I've seen some new names here as I catch up. The only mention of mental health in the entire original series is on McCoy, but it's there every week. It was there, the K3 circuit, the K3 factor. So a little deep diving with this same topic, but in my realm of things, which is deep diving Star Trek and backstage and all that. And again, like with plots, you've made a different series in a franchise for 55 years. So there was probably one or two consequential decisions made along the way at different times. So what I thought I'd bring you today was one that, and this isn't a complete surprise because my podcast, The Trek Files, it was a huge thing at the time, like 2 years ago when we discovered this. But I know a lot of people, it's only been 2 years and a lot of people may have missed this point. So in 1986, pivotal year, it's the 20th anniversary. The corporation it's a corporate sponsored event. They're celebrating it. Star Trek 4 is coming, and it's got everybody excited. It's going to be a huge movie. They know it in advance because they can tell, and they're excited about that. They're excited about the corporate's 20th anniversary and parties and celebrations, and they also decide to finally do another small screen TV series of Trek, which makes the local stations happy and makes fans happy, except for, as Libby and others were noting today in the chat, that there was a big chunk of fandom, stop me if you've heard this before, who were pissed about the new show coming because they didn't like some of the changes that were made. But here's the thing. That is going to happen all the time. I was in shock because I'm like, you people wanted a new show for 20 years. Of course it's not going to be the same characters. Do you want them to recast them? Which happened later, but at the time they were all still up and going, all the original actors. So that was a good choice not to do that. But the decision that I love is one that I was just aware of only a couple of years ago when we found some paper in Gene's files that originally when they decided to make Star Trek The Next Generation, a think tank at Paramount came up with an idea for a premise. So can you put up the letter there?
The first one? Yeah. I was just reading it actually while you were talking.
So this is a letter to Gene. So sorry, guys, no photos today, but we're going to do graphics. So it'll feel like a Trek Files. So this is a letter to Gene from John Pike, who was the head of the studio, the TV studio, saying, hey, Gene, who had rights, but he didn't own it. Hey, Gene, I'm just letting you know, here's something that Rick Berman and I and Jeff Hayes, who just passed away recently, had been working on. We just want to see what you think about it, thinking that Gene kind of had executive authority over, he had rights to approve or disapprove, whatever, but thinking he would do it like a movie where he didn't have a lot of rights, but people still wanted to get his blessing. And he would sound off, but he's getting older and he's not having his strokes yet, but he's up there. He's slowed down. And they're saying, here's the thing. And they send him like a 10, 12 page story outline and then go ahead and put the next one up. So this is September of 1986. And I don't know how well everybody can read these, but if you can see. So here's their character list. And you will see that it's those beloved Next Generation characters like the Vulcan Captain Roan and Horatio Gates, the engineer, and the beautifully painful cadet girl. And you're sitting there, hopefully going, what? What is this? This was a whole show based on a few years into the future. And this is 86. So they've only filmed Star Trek 4. But Star Trek 3, you've only seen Klingons in like motion picture one scene. And then you saw Kruge and his crew. And this is a premise built on about 10 years after the last Star Trek movie you saw, or 20 years, where there had been a 10-year Klingon Federation war that had just ended, and it's a fragile piece, and there's an initial incident that starts a thing, and they decide to put a Klingon observer on every Starfleet ship and a Starfleet officer on every Klingon ship, and that's one way out of the peace thing. And they both bashed each other for 10 years, and so they're moving forward and looking at the rest of the galaxy, and that was the premise of this show. Which okay, but you can see how it's not very big picture-y. Right? It's kind of like taking what we knew, adding 20 years and going ahead. But this whole idea, the revolutionary thing about Next Gen that we didn't even realize even then, was that now by going ahead 80 years, it wasn't a reboot. It wasn't a recast. They just created a new timeline further in the future, and Kirk, Spock, McCoy weren't wiped out. They totally existed. This is just a new era, and it allowed improved technology and design, and everything's post Star Wars that people expected by then to happen. So, fictionally, production wise, all these things, it was a perfect fit decision for it. But that was not the original decision. And where I'm going with this is that was the studio's corporate committee. We're going to push into the future 20 years. And here's old man Gene Roddenberry at home. And yeah, greed and selfishness and ego is part of it. And he'd been sidelined he'd been put out to pasture from the movies after the motion picture. But contractually on the TV show, he was still top dog. But what was his physical shape? And it wasn't great. But basically, he saw that and said, well, that's really nice, guys. But oh, no, I've sat here for 20 years and you sidelined me for the movies. Here's my real chance to speak up for the future. We're going to do this. We're going to go big and bold. And I know we got budgets and I know we got limitations, but we're going to push the envelope of everything we can do. And we're not going to sell this somewhere and be on the bubble like in the 60s. We're going to do a thing where we're going to go for either we get a guaranteed 1 or 2 years or deals off. And they went to the 3 networks and even little baby startup Fox. And then when they couldn't get anything, somebody, the rest of the think tank at Paramount said, well, let's syndicate it and pioneer that and have our own stations, motley crew of stations around the country, and wound up getting 200 stations and being bigger than a network. And then by the 4th season, getting bigger ratings in the World Series and Monday Night Football and Roseanne, and name a hit show of the time. By 4th, 5th season, they were doing better in the ratings. And all of that because Gene Roddenberry could have stayed home and been retired and taken his 10%. But Gene decided, and you can say it was motivated by greed or ego or whatever, but Gene decided we're going to do better than this. We can be bigger than this. This is what I'd expect copycats to come along and think they were pushing the envelope, but let's do this. And what you got was Worf and Klingon peace, and you got Geordi and a visor, and you got you got Data, Questor rewarmed over. Okay, fine, whatever. But anyway, you got this. You got a bald Frenchman, Englishman. You got a return to not a lot of brass and showy militaristic stuff on uniform. You got back to sleek, paramilitary Starfleet where everything is de-escalated and it's more about the exploring and the science and the head case. So because of Gene's decision, for whatever reasons, to go big and be painfully big for a year or two, then everything adjusted. And all of a sudden, a few years went by, and now we're going to do a spinoff. Well, now let's do this, DS9. Let's do this, Voyager. And now we're talking about alternate universes. We're talking about 200 years of story space. And we have a franchise. And then we have a cinematic universe before we knew what that buzzword was. So I'm just thinking that of all the choices, obviously, from the moment to do the first pitch letter and NBC giving them a second chance on a pilot and everything that's happened along the way, and not casting a male, but stick to your guns and have a female captain when you had trouble casting. I mean, everything. I almost want to say that of everything, it's that decision. Gene could have been simple and stayed at home and just had the money roll in, but he chose to push everybody one more time, even though his time was running out. And that would really lead to what we have today, even on a higher plane than just getting the whole thing out of the gate. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm thinking it through.
Did I blow you? Did you know about it? Did you catch this the first time?
I didn't know that. No, I didn't know.
Hey, see? Thank God.
I didn't know anything. I love this game, actually, of Surprise Ali on Life Support Live with the K through.
Unintended consequences. Okay.
No, this is not. Yeah, right. No, I didn't know about this. I didn't know that this think tank at Paramount was working on this idea of what the next generation could be and how different that would have been. That's definitely news to me. And I'm just kind of thinking how different that show would be. That show might be more familiar, but it wouldn't be expanding what Star Trek means. And I think if you look at how Star Trek became the cinematic universe and how it expanded. Each new series has gone in some different directions, and
Or
I
no
think you
one's
see,
gone before.
yeah, or no one's got it before. I think the original series Next Generation and DS9 shows it very well, where each is building on what's come before while also going in a very different direction. And that I think is part of the secret sauce of Star Trek.
Almost a quantum leap ahead, you might say.
Oh boy. Yeah, I was gonna make a reference to Doctor Who. Actually, each new series seems if each new series feels like a regeneration where there's familiar elements, but the personality, the sets, the stages, all of that stuff sort of changes. So yeah, I'm thankful Gene did kind of push
Every new
back.
Star Trek has to be exactly the same, but totally different.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I'm gonna punch a few buttons on Ziggy over here and get us into the
Ooh.
into the away mission. So this is the part of the show where I give you some sort of recommendation on how you can apply what we're
Help
working
us,
on.
Ollie-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope.
Hey, that's who I should be. I'm not Chewie. I want to be. Oh, wait, but Obi-Wan dies right there in A New Hope.
Oh,
But
he's
does he
never dead
really?
as long as we keep him in our hearts and in our
Yeah.
hologram visual effects budgets. Okay.
Yeah. I'll just be a Force ghost. That's fine. So I want to talk about we've got these two ways of thinking, right? We've got the fast decision making process, which is a much more emotional process, but one that actually gets better with more experience. And then we have the slow process, which is much more deliberate, analytical. You're kind of stuck in a Vulcan mental loop there.
I was going to say, so basically we have the Kirk process and the Picard process.
Yeah, you could think about it that way. Or we can go, we've got more of a Bones process and we've got more of a Spock process. And I always find Kirk to be sort of the bridge between the two.
Oh,
If you want to think about it in that way too. But I've got one tip to help you with both. So if you're stuck in more of a slow process and you're having a hard time making a decision, I've got a tip to help you with that. This tip is going to seem a little silly at first, but hey, bear with me here. So one thing I recommend people to do when they're struggling with making a decision and that when they're stuck is to clarify what your values are and let your values guide that decision making. We want actually more emotion to come into that decision making process. And you might be wondering, "Oh, what the heck are my values?" I don't know. Easy way to think about it is to imagine your 100th birthday. The people you are closest to are there and they're sharing stories about who you are, what you've meant to them, why you mean so much to them, and the things that you've achieved in your life. As you start to play out this exercise and actually do it, it will the things that you hope people would say about you will clarify what your values are. You know, I'll do this with people, and sometimes they'll talk about, I was really there for my friends and family, or I took a lot of career risks and I really got the stuff done that I wanted to, or they might talk about, Larry really built up a community and supported that community. Or Ali, who's that? I don't know Ari. But Ali really shared what he knew with people and made that stuff accessible. As you do this, it'll clarify what your values are. And then once you have a better sense of what your values are, let those values guide your decision making. This is what Kirk did when he stole the Enterprise and went over to Spock. His values were not following the rules. It was serving his crew, serving the people he loves. when Riker decided not to take command, it's because right now at this point in his career, he valued learning and growth. And the best opportunity to learn more and grow as a commanding officer was on the Enterprise under Picard. That's what he valued. Damar, not only does he value a good Kanar, sorry, Larry, sorry, I had to. Not only does Damar really, Damar really values being a Cardassian above all else. He is a patriot, and so his decision to rebel was one that was at the core about being a Cardassian, Cardassia first, right? I can go on and on.
Cardassia forever.
Yeah, Cardassia forever. I can go on and on, but if you're stuck in a slow decision-making process and you're experiencing some gridlock, clarify your values. There's more stuff I can share about that. There's card sorting exercises where you can sort out different values until you come to a very small set. There's a lot of online websites. If you just Google search value clarification, you can find a bunch of free websites that will help you to kind of figure this stuff out. But this will bring the emotions you need to that decision-making process. Now, if you're making decisions that are very fast and you want to slow them down, I've got another tool for you. And I have, I believe, what might be our first away mission image, Larry. I'm going to put this up.
Oh, that's right. This is the first Ollie image of the whole damn show, folks.
Of the whole show. Yeah. I don't
now
think
it's my turn to be surprised.
Yeah, here's my K3 Star Trek or K3 mental health. So there's a skill from a treatment called dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. And it's I love the skill. We call it a pro-con skill, but it's doing pro-cons a little bit differently than you normally do. So if you're making decisions that are too fast, too emotional, one of the things that really helps is finding ways to slow that decision making down and to trigger more of the slow thinking process. And so one thing that you can do is this pro-con sheet. So the way this pro-con sheet works, and I do this myself, and I've done this.
The whole time you were saying pro-con, I thought you meant like Creation or Read Pop or Wizard World.
Oh,
versus the fan con. But okay.
Very different con. And this is also not con, but this is a different con. So it's if you're making very fast decisions and you want to slow it down, you want to write down the pros and cons of doing that thing and then of not doing that thing. So let's say the decision you're struggling with is whether or not I should get into this fight with someone else about the Kelvin timeline. You can kind of write out, well, what are the pros of me arguing with Larry? What are the cons of me arguing with Larry about the Kelvin timeline? And then what are the pros of me not saying anything at all? And what are the cons of me not saying anything at all? Usually people don't do that part. They don't play out the pros and cons of not doing the thing. Mm-hmm. And they're different. It's different than the pros and cons of doing the thing.
It's almost like the control group alternative to the active decision.
Yeah.
Were not made.
Yeah. So if you ever want to trigger the slow decision-making process, do that. If you want to trigger the fast decision-making process, get some clarification on your values. All right. Did I surprise you, Larry?
You did. You surprised me just knowing that you had to create your own image and put it up there. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't create it. I did a Google search and I just put it up there. All right, let's open up those hailing frequencies just for a moment. Larry, any comments you want to highlight?
Well, I just will say real quick that I had pulled things for Discovery and Picard and Lower Decks, and I think I love how you said, well, Michael Burnham makes a life-changing decision in every episode for everybody else. But I had pulled out the initial thing in the Vulcan Hello of giving her captain a neck pinch, which was kind of and set this whole this fairly rational person up until then kind of started. It's almost like you should start a series at that point and then, tell tales. And then the one I did for Lower Decks was, there's decisions made every time there. But as a character thing, the decision that Mariner made somewhere in her life as a pattern. I've got the whatchalongs here, the pig folks, the short pigs, where she's giving them stuff, but later on they're giving art supplies to the Beta 3 people. But that whole thing of she's going to do good for the rest of humanity, peoplehood, wherever they are, but she's going to do it not by the rules. She's going to break the rules while she helps people. Like that, as her rebellion against her mom and everything in Starfleet and all that. And then she rebels against that once or twice. But just as a career, she's made a decision to make decisions subversively, or to do good subversively, which is kind of
right.
But the other thing, the one about Picard, and I think everybody thinks, oh well, Picard
Tapestry.
Yes. The series Picard, not the character Picard. But everybody would jump into well, he decides to go out after, he's going to help Dodge. I'm going to say the decision that really is consequential is when he decides to personally risk his. He feels so strongly about helping the Romulans in the middle of the anti-synth wave that he says, either do this or I'm out of here. And they say, okay, you're out of here. And he's like, whoa, it's not only a big thing for the flow of history in the Federation and local space, but personally, because he goes back and, he goes into retreat and a decline and goes and grabs 2 old Romulans to help him run his vineyard. I mean, it's a personal thing, and then he bounces out of that. Then it's if he'd just been on here's good old John Luke on his track upward. Oh, here's where he was lieutenant, and stabbed a guy. Now he's even had a look at that again, and he's just on the track to be a captain and be an admiral and be an ambassador, and what a great historic guy he is. Wow, he died over here. That's amazing, but it's also kind of boring. And the fact that he had this huge spike and then a crash and then come back was dramatic and good storytelling. But although I know some folks like Tim in the chat and people decry that as, nihilistic and dark and all of that. But it's a character art. But as far as a person making decisions, he risked it all there. The way Kirk put everything on the line for Spock twice. He put everything on, and he's done that before. And he's been Locutus, but that was kind of out of his hands. And then he comes back. And then he also made the choice not to stick the virus on Hugh. He made that choice. And that was, I would say, also consequential. But I think this was even as big or maybe bigger. So anyway, there's 1 or 2 right there for Picard. But for the series of Picard, I thought that was even the bigger choice than him just deciding to go. Because if he hadn't, it would have just been the Romulans all putzing around with themselves and maybe they unleashed the mechanical serpents from the other dimension or whatever that was. But anyway.
Well, Larry, I've got some very important comments that I want to get to. And I want to make sure we don't miss these. So apparently there's a little contest to create some tongue twisters for us related to Damar that I'm sure you are going to love because I'm going to read all of them for you, Larry. Linda says, Damar drinks Kanar. Damar drinks Kanar from a jar at the bar with the man from Fringanar. Damar fought. Here's another one. Damar fought the war in his car with Kanar. Tim says Damar drinks Kanar in the bar not too far from the car with Natasha Yar. Oh my gosh.
Over there? Okay.
No, and then that's a different comment over here. Oh gosh, I think there's more. Yeah, Tim's got a budge. Kanar drinks Kanar in the bar not too far. That must have been in Damar. Damar drinks Kanar in the bar not too far. I already read that one.
It's working out the rhythm.
Oh my gosh.
These are the pink pages now. We've gone the blue pages. We're about to get gold tint.
I am the Ferenginar one might be my favorite.
Green tint.
Okay.
What?
But there was also a very long discussion about B'Elanna and B'Elanna's identity, as well as her the decision she makes with her infant,
Right.
her unborn
Right.
child, her developing fetus, but also her people were talking about her hatred of herself, and what we can describe as internalized racism. There's a lot of people of color or people from minority backgrounds might
There's
internalize.
another topic. These are
Yeah, I
all
think
great
that's a whole
topics
nother
for the week.
topic. Sometimes people from minority backgrounds
We should make
develop
a
the
decision about
same biases that exist in outside cultures about themselves. It's been described as internal racism or internal homophobia. These kind of things that a lot of that might lead people to kind of hate themselves. So there's a great discussion that was happening about that. So we saw the discussion. So thank you for everyone having that. That's probably a different episode, but we can probably do that
Yeah,
episode.
we can expand all those discussions. I
Yeah,
mean,
because it taps into Spock too. It taps into
sure.
Worf. I think there's a lot of characters who have that. And then Charlotte was nice enough to
Odo?
say, yeah, Odo. Charlotte was nice enough to say, we all know Ollie's Yoda. Just don't say Genesis around him.
Yeah,
Oh gosh, that's all I've got, Larry.
don't ever push the red button around Ali. Yeah. Well, again, sometimes we come into these themes and it's like, well, that's a narrow focus, not, and this was one of them. So it was kind of like, but then I was trying to fight the thing about, well, what did the captain character do in the pilot that set up that's an easy thing to go to, and I was tired this week, but that's why there were one or two or three holdouts that I tried to hold out for. So, but yeah,
Speaking
I
of-
knew we would have no shortage of all this in the chat thing.
Speaking of holdouts, Scott took his sweet time, but I think it was worth it. Damar's Canar is here, not far, but Janeway's coffee is in that nebular. Oh my gosh, Larry. Larry, where can people find more of Trekland this week?
All I have to say is har har har. Okay.
Oh my gosh, Larry, take it away.
Yeah.
Trekland.
Hey guys,
What's going
we're
on?
kind of in a lull. We've had a busy couple. I've had a couple busy months. I think you too, Ollie. But no, Larry Nemecek Tom. Larry Nemecek Tom. Where did that come? LarryNemecek.com is what it is. So at Larry Nemecek on Twitter, there's, we're again kind of in a lull, but one thing that's been new is, aside from having, again, all the past live supports, all 51 of them, where are we, Scott? 51 now too? Are all
It's 52. It's 52 today.
Well, no, but I mean, like, today's better not be up yet because it won't be complete.
Oh, you mean the podcast?
Yeah, the podcasts.
Right.
All
right,
the
right.
podcasts are up there. They've been slightly tweaked, to be podcasty, but they're 98% intact of what you heard originally. And I'm going to go back and listen to some early ones and watch some early ones too. But we are here. If you haven't liked and subscribed the YouTube channel that you're on, or can go over to it, that would be wonderful. Otherwise,
we would love a review, a thumbs up, a
Yes,
5-star.
yes.
That will help people to find.
6.
Yeah.
There
yeah.
are 6 stars. That would be even.
There are
awesome.
6 stars.
Break the mold. Break the form. Yeah. But I'm here on Tuesdays at 1:00 Pacific, 4 Eastern, with my Trekland Tuesdays live show. Just me alone, but live chat like this when we get around to it. You think I've had soapboxes here? Wait till you see my non-toxic soapboxes on Tuesdays. And then also our podcast, The Trek Files, which you can go back and find those documents I showed. Maybe on our page, on the life support page, I will put up the direct link, because it's been 2 years ago. The episode where we brought out all those story documents for the TNG that never was. Thank goodness, in hindsight. So yeah, so that's going on. How about you, Ollie?
Well, Larry, did you know there are 6 stars of Canar at Quark's bar?
Over Yar?
Over Yar.
Over Thar?
Yeah, says so, Tasha Yar. Oh gosh, folks, What
a
a
star.
wonderful decision you all made with that rhyme scheme.
Thank you, guys. That's hysterical.
Thank you for that. What do I do right now, Larry? What do I talk about?
What you're doing.
Oh, yes. Okay,
Because you're a star.
Yes, but by how far? No, I've got real stuff cooking. So, I brought back this past Thursday. I brought back my office hours,
Yes,
which are a informal hangout where anyone can ask questions about psychology and mental health. So if you'd like to join that, I record the office hours on Thursdays at let's see if I can get this, Larry. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 British summertime, 11:30 India time, 2 a.m. the next day in the Philippines. I think those are all my biggest.
Yeah.
Is where all my people are. So I think I got all those types. But I record live on Discord, and then I post the highlights on YouTube. And the
Yes.
first highlight of that is coming soon. So
Yes, they are.
I got to get through this, Larry. I got to get through this. And so there's that. And then the other thing is, and if you want to see the highlight on YouTube, as the happy music begins to, no, it's not happy now. It's sad. It's very sad. As the sad music begins to play, we want to thank Jared for helping to moderate, as well as Scott. We also want to thank Jared. Does a lot of post-production cleanup on the video side, and then Scott does a lot of post-production cleanup on the podcast side. So thank you, Scott and Jared, for being so amazing and a part of this community. And thank you to the community, to all the lifers here, for your hilarious comments this week and keeping us company and keeping us
And I did a really bad job this week of not getting into the bottom half, so thank you, Ali, for jumping in for the RRR there of
har har.
the har of the final threads and some of the comments that were coming at the end. And again, and I didn't even get to see some familiar face names that were in here, and some other ones. I see maybe M. Cooper on YouTube. I'm not sure if that's somebody else I already know, but I feel like maybe I should. But anyway, if I didn't do a yell out, if you're new with us this week, welcome once again, and I look forward to hanging around here and any of my other spaces or any of Ali's other spaces too. We'd love to see them.
I am not gonna stop. I'm not gonna give up here. Scott, Damar drinks Canar while synths attack Mars.
Okay.
Damar drinks Canar at Quark's bar with a Vulcan in Ponfar.
Ponfar, huh?
Oh my gosh. Jamal says Damar drinks Canar at the bar and spied from afar Dr. Solar, who was about to experience Ponfar.
Folks, if this keeps up, I'm about ready to go out and get the feathers and tar.
Last but not least, Damar drinks Canar while Solak experiences heavy Ponfar. Oh, folks, what a lovely episode this has been. Larry, I'm so excited for next week.
None of that will work as a podcast.
Yeah, no.
Oh, wait, it will. Okay.
All right, folks, thank you for being here. Thanks for being a part of the community.
Yep.
Do me a favor and live long and prosper.
Hey, everybody. Yes, thanks so much for today. Trek well, everybody.